My name is Paula Jaime, and this is my final English project. I'm going to talk about Edgar Allan Poe and two of the little story he wrote, Berenice and the Raven. Edgar Allan Poe was born in Boston in 19th of January during 1809. His parents died and he was adopted by a couple. He studied on the University of Virginia. He became addicted to alcohol and gambling. He quit the army suddenly after enlisting. Poe married his own cousin who dies. This was what caused his final surrender to alcohol. Allan Poe was a writer, poet, and journalist. He known for being a timeless master of short story writing, gothic novel, and horror stories. Berenice. The story's narrator states that his first name is Egus. He refuses to reveal his surname, but says that he comes from an aristocratic family. Egus has a female cousin named Berenice. As children, Egus and Berenice are very different. Berenice is very active and energetic. She enjoys being outdoors and has few worries. Egus is a sickly child. He spent most of his time reading in the library of his father's mansion, and he is of a gloomy disposition. Berenice contracts a disease that ultimately proves fatal for her. One of the symptoms of the disease is catalepsy. Berenice's disease causes her appearance and behavior to alter greatly. At around the same time, Egus begins to suffer from a mental disorder which makes him become fixed for long periods of time on a single minor or trivial things. Also, he admits to never having loved Berenice. Egus asks her to marry him. She accepts. One winter afternoon, Egus is sitting in the library when he looks up and notices that Berenice is standing in front of him. As a result of this disease that she is suffering from, the once beautiful Berenice now looks extremely thin and pale. Her once jet black hair has turned yellow and the light has gone out of her eyes. She parts her thin lips in a smile. Egus notices her teeth. He immediately becomes obsessed with those teeth. He spends several hours thinking about them. The next thing Egus knows, Berenice has left the room and evening has come. Egus remains in the library thinking about Berenice's teeth for an entire day. When evening comes again, he is brought out of his reverie by the sound of sad voices from outside the room. A maid informs Egus that Berenice has died and that a grave has already been dug for her. Egus finds himself sitting in the library again. He knows that Berenice has been buried, but he has no memory of her funeral. He has a vague sense of horror and faint memory of a woman screaming. He knows that he has done something terrible, but does not know what it was. Egus notices a nondescript little box on the table next to him. Egus shudders when he sees the box, but does not know why. A servant comes into the library. He tells Egus that the scream was that led to the discovery that Berenice's grave had been opened. He had that Berenice was found to be still alive. The servant points out that Egus' clothes are covered in mud and blood, and that there are scratched made by human fingernails on his hands. Eagles notice that there is a spade leaning against one of the library's wall. Horrified, Eagles leaps to his feet and struggles to open the little box. The box falls from his hand and breaks open. Bernice's teeth are scattered across the floor. The Raven. The narrator is alone on his house on a cold December evening, trying to read. As he is about to fall asleep, he hears a quiet knock at his door, but decides to ignore it. He says that he has been reading in the hopes of relieving his sorrow over Lenore, his beloved, who has passed away. So he tries to convince himself that nothing is there. His curiosity and fear overwhelm him. He eventually opened his door, speaking, "Leonore," into the darkness. When he hears tapping at his window, he opens that, too, and a raven flies inside his room, landing on a bust of Pallas. The narrator jokingly asks the raven's name, and is surprised to hear it respond, "Nevermore." He mutters to himself that the raven will probably leave him just as his friends and loved ones did, to which the raven responds once more, "Nevermore." The narrator then seats himself directly in front of the bird, trying to understand what it means by nevermore. Suddenly, the narrator perceives that angels sent by God have caused the air to become dense and perfumed. Anxious, he asks the raven if the angels are a sign that heaven will relieve him his sorrows, to which the bird says again, "Nevermore." With the same response, the bird rejects his hope that he might see Leonore again in heaven, as well as his impatient request for the bird to leave him alone. Finally, the narrator tells us that the raven has continued to sit atop his chamber door above the bust of Pallas, and that he will live forever in its shadow. In both stories, the main characters are male. Both of them lost their wives, Berenice and Leonore. This relates to Poe's personal life, who lost his wife, what caused his surrender to alcohol and darkness, as his characters.